Yes, I will just start a timer, so I will not keep you from your lunch, as I was urged previously by someone in the audience. You know who you are. So we'll make it sort of quick, but we'll also give you a lot of information, I hope, and hopefully we will have a lot of questions as well. So welcome to our presentation on the CO2 emissions of storage and use of digital objects and data, exploring climate actions using a case study of the platform Delver. So let's do a really short introduction. So Tamara.
Hi, I'm Tamara van Zwol. I'm Manager Preservation at the Dutch Digital Heritage Network, and I'm employed by Sound and Vision in the Netherlands.
Yes, and I'm Lotte Wijsman, and I'm the preservation researcher at the National Archives of the Netherlands. So I wish I was at Sound and Vision,
okay, sorry.
But it's a dream. It's a dream. But the National Archives is also great. So yeah, during this conference, we will of course be talking and discussing how we can make digits flourish and keep them all for as long as we need them or want them. But of course, as we heard earlier, the amount of data is just piling up and it's getting a lot. And yeah, this is also costing a lot of emissions. So we also see climate change happening, of course. And in the Netherlands, we got together with a group of people from different organizations. We will mention them earlier. We will not forget them. To really start talking about this. And we decided to form a network group to really get into the subject. And we were inspired also by the article of Pendergrass toward environmentally sustainable digital preservation by Pendergrass, Sampson, Walsh, and Alanya. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And we really wanted to fill in the gaps. So we were looking at what can we add to this great study already. And what we were missing were the numbers. For myself, I find it very interesting to not only know that, yes, it is a lot of emissions, but also know how much is it. I want to know how many turtles I'm saving with being sustainable. So we made the decision to get the numbers. And maybe it's a well-known Dutch proverb, well, obviously not by the non-Dutch people, but it is by the Dutch people, and it's called meten is weten, to measure is to know. So we started doing that. So we had two questions. How much CO2 does storage and use produce, and what measures can have the most impact? Of course, we wanted to have a well-defined scope to make it manageable for us, because I think our previous presenters can agree it can get really big and not manageable very quickly. So we decided to focus on the platform Delver. For the people who don't know it, which is probably a lot, or I hope not a lot. It is a platform that is developed and managed by the National Library of the Netherlands. And you can search and find millions of texts from Dutch newspapers, books, and other scientific publications or published works. And these documents come from the collections of various Dutch scientific institutions, libraries, and heritage institutions. But of course, we were all archivists and we're not mathematicians. So we also employed a company to join us. It's called Five Factory, and they helped us calculate the CO2 emissions. And they also used the guidelines from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. So we decided to look into 4 factors: servers, server environment, cloud storage, and data use. So servers. Servers provide the computing power and storage required to store and make digital collections available to all users. The servers were the main cause of CO2 emissions. This is due to both the electricity consumption and the indirect CO2 emissions as well from producing and making the servers. The Delver servers consume 242 megawatt hour annually. I think this means nothing to the people here, so we of course have an equivalent. It is the equivalent to electricity consumption of 98 average Dutch households per year, so that's quite a few. So what can you do? Well, you can diminish the impact by creating digital compartments in the servers, like the National Library has done for the data on Delver. And this ensures that the capacity of this service can be used more efficiently, and efficiency is key, as you will probably know at the end of this talk or would already know. Also, the location and environment of the servers can have a big influence on the total CO2 emissions. If data is stored locally, just for one institution, there's a good chance that actions facilitating the servers, such as cooling them, will consume more power. This is why we would recommend to share servers or server space with multiple organizations to be more efficient. There you have it again. So you can move the servers from the National Library location to a more efficient external and shared data center. And this would be considerable savings you can make on electricity costs. So annually, they can save about 151 megawatt hours. So if you paid good attention, you can make your own calculation now on how many households that is, how many Dutch average households. Because many servers are located here, facility systems such as cooling can do their job much more effectively. And this makes the solution not only more sustainable, but also more economic. So you can use that to talk to your managers as well. Like, it's good, it's green, but it's also more economic. It saves us money. People like saving money, as we heard before. So you can do that very easily, I hope. But you can also opt to use more green energy, like the National Library has done. So sunlight, wind, or water. So I will now hand over to Tamara, who will talk about the other measurements you can make.
Thanks, Lotte. Yeah, I will talk to you about cloud storage. That's one of the factors we took into account. With cloud storage, the data and computing power of many companies is divided over servers. And this makes it very efficient to use the server, since every available space is occupied. So the advantage of storage in a cloud environment is that all the type of providers, Microsoft, Amazon, are at the forefront of the developments. And the use of containers to make the capacity of the servers as efficient as possible. Of course, you have to consider it. I'm not sure, do you use cloud environment, cloud providers? It's a choice, because sometimes organizations feel they don't want to lose their control about the data. So the National Library in the Netherlands said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do it in a Dutch location, in a co-location. But of course, if you look at the environmental implications, you might consider it to go over to a cloud environment. Of course, we also looked at data used, our users, because that's the reason why we're here, right? For the users. And this is partly about influencing behavior, if you will. Retrieving files from a digital collection, loading web pages, using the search index causes carbon dioxide. It doesn't help for the emissions. So we looked at the use and the actions user would take to access the information on Delver. A large part of Delver we found wasn't downloaded, but it was viewed on screen and searched. It had a limited impact if you compare it to the servers. That was a larger impact. But still, there are measures you can take here. You can offer lower resolution versions of the digital object files. You can also limit the user features in the website so that fewer files have to be searched in the data store. So just don't do the standard search all option, and explain also why you do that. Make the users part of the problem or the solution in this case. So if you choose the search all option, you're going to kill more trees. Or you're going to increase your carbon footprint. Of course, that's a bit harsh perhaps. But explain why if you choose to do this, why it is important. So the users are part of your solution as well. Of course, we discussed the results. So we had a report made. I'll just show it here with all the recommendations, but it's in Dutch. So we're going to translate it into English this year. if you want to read it.
Or learn Dutch.
Thank you. I'm sure the audience is thrilled with this solution. Okay. We had an investigation into Delver, and of course it's limited, like all research, it's limited. We have not calculated the emissions of digital preservation workflows like pre-ingest, for example. We didn't consider the carbon cost of the data center building or the materials, because of course that's an indirect footprint that you have to take into account, really. And because there are so many topics within this environmental topic, we asked the Dutch heritage professionals to think about it and to work with us. Same as you just asked for more comments, for input. We did that, and we had two sessions in last November and in June, and we asked, what are your experiences? Are you aware of the problem? And maybe it's important to know that most organizations didn't have this in their policies yet. I'm not sure, do you, show of hands, do you have it in your policy yet? This environment, did you think about, oh, I see someone do this? Yes, no? Not so many, no. And that we had the same experience. There were not many people who had this coming. Oh, I have to go on. So the lack of knowledge, that was something that we found and that people want because they feel with it and they want to change things. They want to be more climate aware. I mean, it's all around us. So the sense of urgency was felt. And also some people say, well, we're already doing some things like stricter selection. We heard that before. Not too many copies, because we also like as archivists to have enough copies just to be sure. But we're just producing data and data and data, much more now than 10 years ago. So I think you have to make more choices. So in the end, we had a few topics and that were mentioned for the research agenda, because we're in a group and we said, well, we did this as a starting point, this investigation. What do we do next? So we had organizational impact questions, technology and supplier questions, and of course use. So how can you change behaviors as well? So what did come of all this? We stimulate awareness because before, this was the first time, I think, in the Netherlands, in the Dutch Heritage Network, that we did any report on this theme. We see there's more research needed, more data, and we also like to share the results. I think everybody does here. So we would like to connect with other international initiatives. I saw some beautiful examples just before we did our presentation. So I'm going to connect with you anyway. And I hope you will too. I hope you will ask us questions as well. If you want to ask more questions about the report, the results, we have a poster presentation tomorrow. So please do come and welcome. Thank you so much.
So we've got time for a quick one or two questions from Lotte and Tamara.
Hello, yes, I'm Johan from the Finnish Digital Preservation Services, and I have a question for you all. Have you considered the carbon cost of production of the physical storage media? Because that can be very, very high, we've seen, and consider the different storage options like tape versus disk drives, or the life cycle length of the storage media.
We did look at tape and disks at Delver, because they used to use tape, mostly tape, which is a good thing, because when you don't use it, it doesn't need any energy, it doesn't cost any energy. We also looked at disks, and we see that in a new situation, because they relocated to a co-location, they use bigger disks there, and that helps to reduce the amount of energy that you use. So, and of course, you don't always want to let your people, the users, wait. So that's also a consideration. I mean, you can put everything on tape and say, okay, it costs nothing, but if you want to retrieve it, it takes a long time. So I think you have to see what's best for your user.
I think also I talk to colleagues, and if we look at a physical object like a book or something, digitization, and then the digital object, I think there's a gap there. So we can definitely iPres 2023, 24 perhaps. But I also had a colleague talk to me from the physical part of the archive who really wanted to do something with that. So perhaps that is going to happen. I hope so.
Interesting, and I should have known it, but I have two comments. One is Delver is the digitization of physical things. So you're quite right that you include the physical impact, because it's the double collection, basically. And the other thing is that's not only your presentation, but all the presentations, and we need to do more research. But what I'm missing is the fact that the current prices of energy are high. So I doubt a little bit whether we have much time to do a lot of research. The risk is that someone just say, we stop with this service because it's too costly, or it's only from 9 to 5 or whatever. So if we, as a preservation community, don't have enough arguments, they walk over us. So we need to hurry. That's basically my message.
You're right. We did this research in 2021. So just before all of this, the war started. So yeah, but you're right. And even if you use green energy, you can say, okay, then it doesn't matter how much you use, but I don't think that works that way. You have to free up the energy that's there. So reducing anyway is a good thing. Perhaps not even start with policies, just do it. Or I suppose it's perhaps better. Thank you, Barbara.
I think we've got time for maybe one more. There's a gentleman at the back of the blue shirt.
Hello. I had a question about the cloud storage. You mentioned the co-location and shared data centers, so that's really great. The cloud storage itself, though, it uses server farms which have quite large carbon footprint for now, even though obviously providers are pledging that they will reduce carbon footprint in the future. So how do you propose engaging with the cloud infrastructure for now, knowing that it has such a large carbon footprint?
Well, we understood that the cloud solution was more efficient because they're all parties in there, and they have all compartments, and they work 24/7. So that's the reason why we have it as one of the options. But I know that the National Library chose a co-location in the Netherlands itself with a few other organizations, and they think that's quite up to the job. But sometimes you don't have that choice. I mean, I know a lot of, especially smaller institutions, you're lucky if they do any digital preservation, and they don't always have the server opportunities, or only at their own place to do it differently. So, yeah. But I know there are more. Perhaps they're promising more than they're showing. But I do hope so, because also in their interest as well.
Thank you.
Just to add, you also have the different types of cloud storage as well. You have the glacier, so I think there's an entire research in that as well. So it keeps us off the street.
Okay, well, in the interest of time, I'm afraid I'm going to have to sort of wrap things up there. Can I ask you all to just thank all our speakers again?